Let's get out to Newsmax hosts Rob Finnerty and Tracy Sable live in Vatican City. Rob, Tracy.
Hi, Bianca.
Good to be with you. Yeah, it's interesting. This vote, they say the fourth vote is really sort of the critical vote. Is this really a divided conclave? We will find out when smoke comes out of the Sistine Chapel smokestack at any moment. It's 6 p.m. here in Rome right now, and we just keep sort of our eyes
we're on smoke watch.
Fixed on smoke watch, waiting the results of this this fourth vote. To your point, 4 votes for Pope Benedict in 2005 and 5 votes for Francis in 2013. John Paul II, understandably, was 8 votes because John Paul I was only Pope for 31 days, and it took them a little while to make a decision, and they didn't want to go through that again 33 days later after that like they just had. Alex Salvi is joining us now. He's down in St. Peter's Square, and he's got more on what it looks like there. And this is from our vantage point up here high above St. Peter's Square. Certainly the busiest we've seen it yet, Alex.
Yeah, good evening to you both. It's certainly more crowded than it was yesterday at this time as we continue to watch this chimney and really indicate what exactly is happening behind the walls of Vatican City. It's believed that cardinals are now voting on their 3rd ballot of the day. Based on the time right now, it's possible it could be the 4th after being unable to reach a consensus during the morning session. Now, black smoke, as we saw again, billowing out from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel just before noon local time, earlier than many were expecting, although it's too early to say at this point. The votes this afternoon, the votes that we're waiting on right now, could be telling as electors can either keep up with recent history or change course. After returning from a midday break, they now enter the Sistine Chapel for the 4th and the 5th ballots, the ones that previously produced victors and Popes Benedict and Francis, respectively. The result over the coming moments will be an indicator of the cardinals, and are they more united than they are in the past, or if their internal divisions are indeed valid. Now, crowds already gathering, as you mentioned, right here in St. Peter's Square, watching for those smoke signals, with over 15,000 people gathering in the morning, many letting out a vocal sigh at the sight of black smoke. And while some are frustrated by the wait, others are grateful for the experience.
Jay Doyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue to wait.
Actually, I'm a bit disappointed because I would have expected, I would have preferred if the Pope would have been there, but at least now we have something to look forward to come back in the afternoon.
I really want to see who comes out on the balcony, so I'll be back later this evening and hopefully a Pope is selected.
Now, the Holy See says upwards of 40,000 people gathered here last night for the first result, and we expect that number to be surpassed as the conclave enters this crucial session that could produce the next leader of the Catholic Church. Back to you.
Okay.
So CJ Doyle. Alex, thank you for that. Appreciate it. We were just getting an update, and we're all sort of awaiting smoke, so this is a fluid situation.
And as we hear cheers back there, so we're wondering what's happening.
Well, it confused us because there's a big round of applause. We actually think it might have been for the seagull, who everyone continues to spot near the smokestack on top of the Sistine
they think he knows
Chapel.
something.
But you hear the round of applause, and we all of a sudden we're craning our necks to see what's going on. CJ Doyle is with us from the Catholic Action League in the state of Massachusetts. CJ, nice to be with you.
It's an historic day.
CJ, could you give us some insight?
We could have the 4th or the 5th vote, before 7 p.m. Rome time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and if someone is elected,
white smoke.
What?
White smoke.
Oh, wait, CJ, we have smoke. We have smoke.
And it is white smoke. That looks like white smoke.
It looks white. Don't jump too soon, though, because sometimes it turns black. The bells should come.
So we're waiting for the bells.
The bells should come.
It's hard. It looks white, though.
We're waiting for the bells. If there are bells, then we have a new pope. But that certainly looks white to me.
I'm sorry, I screeched like that.
Nope.
I mean, it's an exciting
the round
time,
of applause
right?
is remarkable.
We do.
And people are surging into St. Peter's Square right now. We're about 6 stories up, and we can see it.
Father Keeley, talk to us. I don't know if you're mic'd up, though. What are you thinking right now?
Well, it's very quick. It's an extraordinary quick conclave, which means the Holy Spirit move very, very quickly, or some good politicking happen, but it's extraordinarily quick to do it on the first day.
We did not expect this, did we?
Not at all.
So much for that divided church.
Cardinal Dolan said this is going to be a long conclave.
And that's what a lot of people were saying. I mean, the people that we all talked to, Rob.
We must wait for the bells, though, because in the past we've had white smoke that goes black or black smoke that goes white.
We have had false alarms
We have.
in the past.
So that looks pretty white, though.
But this looks pretty darn white. And the
Wow.
reaction from the crowd, and we have monitors set up down in St.
Yeah.
Peter's Square, so we can see the situation. And it looks like white smoke. But we are
This is
awaiting the
incredible.
bells. The bells will make it official.
Yes.
And the bells are tolling.
And you can
Yes.
see people
We have a
rushing
pope.
into
We
St.
have a
Peter's.
pope. Habemus Papam.
Yeah, and people are rushing into St. Peter's Square right now. And now let's toss it to Alex Salvi, who is right there in the middle of all of it. Alex.
Yeah, that's right. The crowd erupting just right now, as you heard right there. The bells right there confirming that is indeed white smoke pouring out of the chimney right there as it continues to go. We do now have a pope. The process is now underway. In about an hour, one man will be introduced to the entire world by his given name, followed by his papal name overnight, becoming instantaneously one of the most famous and influential people in the entire world. At this point right now, the bells are being rung out to the rest of Rome. It's about an hour before we'll see that man walk out from the loggia of the balcony behind me and be introduced to the rest of the world.
First name.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Can we welcome in the Father?
Sorry.
All right. Great to be back with you. We have a pope. Crowds are surging into St. Peter's Square. Father, can we get your reaction to what we're seeing? This is much faster than anybody anticipated.
Frankly, Rob, I'm stunned because almost everyone was saying this was going to be a longer conclave than normal. This is now looking like one of the fastest conclaves ever. Stunning, absolutely stunning. When we hear the Latin name in a few moments, we will know who it is.
What is a signal to you, Father, that we have a pope now? Again, like you said, we did not expect it. At least most of us did not expect it this early.
No. Well, please God, it means the cardinals were united and felt the right man has been picked. Pope Benedict XVI famously said, many Catholics think the Pope the Holy Spirit picks the Pope, in which case he's picked some bad ones. But, Pope Benedict said the Holy Spirit guides. So please God, he has guided these cardinals. This is a very quick vote. It's extraordinary.
And I will say, totally unexpected.
Absolutely
We were expecting
unexpected.
black smoke. We were talking about this before we came
That's
on.
right.
Just a name says a lot. It's all in the name. The name will give us an indication if this pope is progressive or if this is a more traditional pontiff.
Well, the very first thing I would get the views to, first we'll know who it is when they announce his first name. But then, when he comes out, he's wearing the mozzetta, the red, we will see it's a little more traditional, a return to more tradition. But yes, then if he's so-called progressive, we could have a Francis II. Otherwise, it would be a different name. If it's a John Paul III, we will also know which direction the church is going in. But I'm almost speechless. This is so quick.
Forgive me at home. I'm just going to look over the side of the balcony here to see the people surging into St. Peter's Square right now.
All over Rome, they'll be pouring in.
Now it's remarkable, and you can hear these bells all over the city of Rome.
Yeah. Father, you were talking about the vestments when he walks out onto the balcony of St. Peter's. Tell us more about what that indicates.
So in the past, we've heard of the Room of Tears. There are three sizes of the papal vestments, the white vestments, but there's also what's called a mozzetta. It's a kind of a red top. And Francis was famous because he didn't wear it, which was a big break with tradition. But the idea is really that the man subsumes himself. When he takes a new name, he's no longer the man he was. So that really is a sign that I'm a new man. So if the new Pope does not wear it, it means he's following in the Francis example. If he wears it, it means we've got a more traditional Pope.
Yeah. There were a couple of candidates that were kind of top of mind for a lot of people. One of them was Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State. That was a name that came up. Also Tagle. We have mentioned Cardinal Pizzaballa. Walk us through some of those names and who you think
Well,
It
when
might
he
be.
says, when the cardinal says Habemus Papam and then says the name, if he says Petrus, it's extremely likely it's Parolin. If he says, I'm not quite sure of the Latin, but if it's something Petrus Battista or Pietro Battista, it's Pizzaballa. The rest of the names, if it's Tagle, it's Antonio, his first name, Antonius. So, or if it's some name we don't even know at the moment, we're going to be scratching our heads for a few minutes.
Yeah, another name that came up from the United States of America, Cardinal Burke.
Cardinal Burke would be wonderful,
Yeah.
but I would be surprised. Another name that came from America was Cardinal Dolan.
That's right.
Talking about Timothy, if we hear Timothy's.
75 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be the right age.
Yeah. We were just discussing how we thought we'd be right back here tomorrow and maybe we'd see white smoke tomorrow. Here we are, Father, witnessing history. What does it tell you that this happened so quickly on the fourth vote? Is that a sign that this church is in many ways much more unified than all of us in the media have been talking about for the last several days, really since April 21st and the death of Pope Francis?
I hope the men there gathered, the cardinals. I mean, remember, they sit before the scene of Michelangelo's judgment. I hope they were bearing in mind the needs of all of us Catholics throughout the world, the Christian world, and found a man who will represent Jesus. He's the vicar of Jesus Christ. That's his title. He's meant to represent Jesus Christ to the world. So please God, this is going to be a moment of joy for the world and for all of the Catholics.
Father, stand by. We want to send it down to Rick Santorum, who is in St. Peter's Square, or just outside the square, with more from how people are reacting. I guess Rick is at the cafe. I'm not sure why we're going to the cafe, but Senator, it's good to see you. What's your reaction to this news?
There's people, you'll see them. They're running by. Everybody is running by to get to St. Peter's Square. There's a tremendous amount of excitement. As you see, there's a sister and a nun passing by. You'll see on the camera, and everybody's with big smiles on their face. It's a lot of excitement here. As far as what this means, the only thing I think that's rational to believe is that you've got someone that is not far from Francis. And when I say not far from Francis, I don't necessarily mean someone who's going to act and behave as Pope like Francis did, but someone who is at best probably in the middle. It could be a Parolin who would certainly subscribe to more of Francis's wanting to move the church a little bit, but is a completely different personality. Someone who's much more diplomatic. He's not going to cause controversies, and so it could be that combination of someone who's not going to be controversial, who's not going to sort of upset the apple cart on a regular basis, but also someone who's not going to just return to the traditions of the church. And so this could be that kind of candidate, or it could be a situation where in the first ballot or two he didn't, that Parolin or someone like him, a Francis acolyte, if you will, didn't do very well. And so they quickly moved on to someone else. We don't know that. But again, my sense was that the longer this conclave went on, the more likely a more conservative Pope would be. We'll wait and see what happens. Back to you, Rob.
All right, Rick, thank you for the update. Back up here high above St. Peter's Square, want to welcome in Vatican expert Tom Williams. Tom, we are not sure whether or not this was vote number 4 or vote number 5. We won't know that until later on this evening. But just want to get your reaction to the history that is taking place right here.
Well, first of all, I think like everybody around here, I'm extremely excited.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's just a thrilling moment.
It is.
It's something that you see the white smoke and everybody, the crowds lit up with applause. And we have the confirmation immediately with the bells, which is magnificent, coming out of St. Peter's. And it's just really exciting to think that they have come together so quickly and we have a new Pope.
Yeah. We were talking earlier. What time do you think it was, Rob? Maybe around 5-ish, where we heard static in our ears, and then a friend of mine had texted to me and said, I think they're jamming the equipment. And it took a little bit. Now it sort of makes sense that they knew at that moment.
They were doing that possibly.
Well, 5 o'clock still could have been the 5th ballot, the final ballot of the day. In fact, it's I guess that's the more probable option, and that's enough time. 5 ballots is really enough time to think this through, to even have a couple swings, and to wind up with their guy. If it had been earlier than this, it'd be almost a little scary to think that it was that quick, a front runner. But right now, it could be one of several candidates. So,
do you have any guesses who it might be? Just given that it was
I have
fast?
people going through my mind. Pete Zabala is one, not just because of the name, but because I think actually he drummed up an awful lot of support.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, though. Why him? Is it because he's in Jerusalem and what's happening right now? Because he's maybe Italian-born?
Well, as you know, the cardinals, the last message they gave was a message of peace, and they mentioned the question of the Middle East, and there he is right in the heart of that. And he is someone who has known how to kind of walk that line between Israel and Hamas and the Arab Christians very, very deftly. And he's done a very, very good job of that, and everyone likes him on both sides, which is great. That shows the possibility of reconciliation. So, I mean, I'm not saying it is he, but he's one that comes to mind.
I'm noticing down in St. Peter's Square, you're seeing flags from countries all over the world, and these flags, many of them coincide with cardinal electors, the home country of many of these cardinal electors. And this happens every time a new pope is elected. People are very hopeful that the new pope might come from their nation. And you just see, it's a scene of thousands of people. St. Peter's Square can hold more than 1,000 people, 100,000 people, I'm sorry. And everybody's united in this moment right now.
Everybody's united, and I think it's a really good sign for the church and for the world that the cardinals in this moment have been unified in finding somebody. 2/3, that's a lot. You know, to get 89 votes means that they really have found a way to put aside differences and say, this is the man we need for right now. And I think that should give everyone a lot of hope.
And quickly.
Very quickly.
And not just for Catholics, though. This is an important moment for the world.
It is an important moment for the world. It actually, I mean, whether we like it or not, and no matter what faith tradition we come from, the Pope is a symbol of moral authority. He's a symbol of someone with a spiritual voice for the world. And 1.4 billion Catholics is a lot.
Yes, it is.
And then beyond that, as you say, there really is, even among our Christian brethren, there is no point of reference like that. And so I was just reading several Christian authors today who are talking about the importance of this election. They're not Catholic, but they know that it's someone that also brings Christians together in a very real way.
Tom, you live here in Rome with your family. You've been here for more than 30 years covering the Vatican. Can you tell us what happens next?
Well, yes, I can. The Pope has to accept. We assume that he has accepted before they actually rang the bells. He has a little formula by which he accepts in Latin. He is taken to what is called the Room of Tears, where presumably at one time people wept. I think it's more metaphorical than anything else right now.
But it's a heavy burden.
It is a very heavy burden. The significance of that term is really that it's a weight. And it's something that you don't take lightly, and that you really know that the rest of your life doesn't belong to you in any way. He can't just go on vacation. He can't just decide something from one day to the next. He really is now completely at the service of the church and the world. So he will go to the Room of Tears, where he is given his papal vestments. So he will put aside his red soutane that he was wearing as a cardinal, and he will don the white robes and the white cape and the white zucchetto, they call the little skull cap that the popes wear. And he will come out. Usually this whole process between the announcement, the white smoke, and the time we will see the Pope on the balcony right behind us is about 45 minutes. It varies from conclave to conclave, but that's more or less what we can expect. We will have Cardinal Mamberti, who is a French cardinal, will come out and announce to the world, Habemus Papam. Habemus Papam, we have a Pope. Then he will say what we're all waiting for. He will say the name of the cardinal, and he will say then the name that he has chosen as his papal name. He will be Pope someone, presumably not his own name. He will take a new name.
As somebody who's witnessed 3 of these conclaves, and you spoke look over your shoulder and see the scene down there. What's your reaction to the crowd? The feeling right now, it's really unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Well, what I really like seeing is the people that are starting to like scamper in and run, and everybody wants to be there. They want to be in the square the moment that balcony, the windows open up, and the cardinal comes out, followed by the new pope, and to hear his very first words. They want to be there. They don't want to see it on television. They don't want to see it on their cell phones. They want to be present.
You know, I will say that there are now metal detectors as you enter the square. In a pre-9/11 time, there were not, and people would surge the square from all sides.
I remember very well. I remember in the 2005 conclave, there were no metal detectors. We could all run right into the square, and it made things a lot easier, actually. Right now, they're going to be over, and these guys, they're going to have to do their jobs quickly and well to allow people the joy of participating in this event.
Yeah, how does this compare to when Pope Francis became Pope? I mean, the crowds that you're seeing right now, is there a comparison?
It was a slightly, smaller affair, and the main reason was because Pope Benedict resigned. He didn't die, so there wasn't a papal funeral. You didn't get, the heads of state coming in, so you didn't have the kind of affluence of people from all over the world already present in Rome. So it's bigger than that right now because we did have the death of the Pope. We are living a Jubilee year, and it was a moment, so we have, Rome is full, and there will be, this is going to fill up tonight. St. Peter's Square is where it's at in Rome.
What about the names? We were talking about that. Can you talk about the significance of choosing the name, the names that they may choose? How personal is it to them, and what does it indicate?
It's extremely personal. Sometimes it's their attachment to a prior pope. For example, in the case of Pope Benedict XVI, who was Cardinal Ratzinger before Joseph Ratzinger, he really had childhood affection for Pope Benedict XV. And he said later on that that's really why he did that, and to kind of disconnect himself also from more recent popes, to be able to, kind of give a fresh start to things. Pope John Paul II took his because John Paul I had only reigned for 33 days, died, and he basically said, I will keep going. Excuse me.
Tom, do you need a moment?
Yeah, let's get you some water.
I will say we had, so the white smoke, official time 6:08 p.m. here in Rome, 12:08 p.m. On the East Coast. And the square, it's just a remarkable sight.
It really is incredible.
And now we are waiting for that beautiful crimson curtain. The new pope will appear. Typically, that happens within about an hour. So right now, as Tom said, the new pontiff, whomever this person is in that room of tears. We've talked about tears of joy, I think, in many ways. What an overwhelming moment. And I have so many questions about how quickly this happened. It happened so quickly.
It shocked us all, I think. I think it really did. I don't think anybody expected it. So, I mean, we're waiting in anticipation to see who it is.
Tom Williams, do you have any reaction to that? Just the speed with which this happened.
I think it's a really positive sign. I think it's something that we should be heartened by. They didn't require ongoing deliberations. And I just want to go back to the names for 1 second. Pope Francis intentionally took a name that had never been taken before, and he did it to harken back to a specific saint, St. Francis of Assisi, to kind of indicate a new direction that he thought that the church should be going in. It would be very significant, for example, if this pope were to say Francis II. That would be a very clear symbol that he intends to continue the work and the priorities of his immediate predecessor, Pope Francis. Otherwise, it could be Paul. I mean, it could be one of the more recent popes. And once we hear who it is, we'll be able to kind of unpack that a little bit and say what the significance is, what that particular name is associated with.
Can I just ask you quickly, how long does it typically take from white smoke, and again, this is your third conclave, white smoke to the Pope making his first appearance on that balcony?
45 minutes is the number that I've got in my recalling that. That's about what it takes. It can be a little more or a little less, but that's what we
generally speaking, within an hour. Tom, stand by. As soon as that happens, obviously, we're going to come back out live. We're waiting for that. What a moment. We want to welcome in Father Tom Martin, St. Pius Church. Father, just your reaction to what we've just witnessed.
Yes, it's pretty amazing. I woke up and my phone has been ringing off the hook. Last evening, I was at the Bar Association dinner in San Francisco of the Italian and Jewish Bar Associations, and at least 50 people asked me who I thought the next pope was going to be. So I think it's a moment of great anticipation and joy for the church, but I think also for the world. It's an incredible moment. There's a little bit of nervousness. Who's it going to be? What direction are we going to go in? But we trust in the Holy Spirit, and again, it's a moment of great joy.
Yeah. Father Tom, tell me how you're feeling at this moment, and what is your hope for the next successor of Peter?
My hope would be that we have a Holy Father who takes some of the forward-thinking dynamics of Pope Francis, but also brings us, I think, a little more clarity about the teachings of the Church and how the Church, with its great traditions, can be relevant in the world today. So somewhat of some balance.
And that's definitely needed. Father Tom, what else is going through your mind at this moment? And how important is this moment right now in the life of the Church?
I think it's incredibly important. I think Pope Francis began to move in a direction that really embraces the world in which we live. So, but just making sure that, again, there's a sense of balance and stability. Just in a lot of conversations I've had with people, there's a great desire for, I think, a little stability. Personally, I'm very excited. Whoever the Holy Father is, we pray for him and we support him. But time of significant change in the Church, time of significant change in the world. And we pray that the Holy Spirit gives us a good shepherd to lead us.
Well said. Father Tom Martin, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Back out here live above St. Peter's Square, I want to welcome in Rob Astorino, who is in the middle of the crowd down in St. Peter's Square. Hi, Rob.
It is packed, to say the least. It was such a weird and amazing feeling when all of a sudden there was just a massive roar of the crowd. Everyone knew it and looked up the white smoke. It kind of surprised me, and I think a lot of people. So by the fifth ballot, they have a Pope, and the proto-deacon, and that is Cardinal Robert from France. He's the one that's going to come out of the curtain there on the balcony and announce Habemus Papam. He's going to announce the real name, the given name of whoever it is, and then the papal name that he is taking. Right now, he's in the room of tears, getting dressed in his white vestments, probably saying a prayer. What is just a monumental task ahead of this man to lead the Catholic Church. And then, of course, he will come out and greet everybody. Now, one hint. If you do not see Cardinal Monferti come out and say...
Okay, back up here live above St. Peter's Square. The world's media descending upon St. Peter's Square, so we'll try and check in with Rob Astorino in a little bit. It is mayhem below us, but Tom Basile is with us. Tom, I just want to get your reaction.
I'm trying.
Tom, your reaction to what we just witnessed. We've been talking about it for the better part of a week. Yeah. Nobody expected this. All of the experts in the media, no one expected this to happen on maybe the 4th, possibly the 5th vote, but no one expected it on day 2.
In our digital society, there are few real surprises that are left for humanity, right? This is one of them, because nobody knew what was going on inside that room. Nobody knew what was going on inside those, when they were having lunch today, what the discussion was. Nobody will ever know what the actual tally was, but the Catholic Church has now elected its 266th successor to St. Peter. And this crowd is going wild down there. The Swiss Guard have just marched in, 135 of them. They have a new boss. And we have a new pope, and in just a little while, the cardinal will come out as Cardinal Filoni has been chosen to be the one to make the announcement. If it's not him who's been elected, he's been the one who's been chosen to give the announcement, and he will say, "I have an announcement of great joy for the entire world." He will read the first name Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, the last name, and then finally the name that he has taken as Pope. And it is going to be an electrifying moment. I mean, the hair is standing up on the back of my neck.
I was going to ask you that, Tom. I mean, how are you feeling right now, and being here in this moment?
It's indescribable, because as a Catholic, I believe that this person that we're going to meet now is a successor to St. Peter, who was chosen by Christ himself to lead this church. And as it says in the Gospel of Matthew, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And so the church will go on, and we're going to debate about this individual for many years, about their impact on the church and the world. But the church will continue to go on, and will continue to grow as other churches, other Christian denominations.
This is a statement, Tom. What just happened? The church just made a statement to the rest of the world, following Pope Francis, following 133 cardinal electors. The magic number was 89. Nobody thought, and we've interviewed how many people, Tracy? We've had 25 guests over the last 2 days easily, and I know you have had as well. Nobody predicted on Thursday. Yet here we are. The sun, twilight, the most beautiful time of day, white smoke in St. Peter's Square.
That's right.
Thousands of people, and we have a new Pope.
And remember, they had to get to 89. 89 is a really heavy lift. It's not whoever just got the most votes. They had to get a 2/3 majority. And one of the things that you're going to watch, and you're going to listen to a lot of the media say, well, the church is still very divided, and they're going to say a lot of different things about whoever this individual is. All of his brother cardinals are going to be out on those loggias, and they are going to be looking out over this city, and they're going to say, the Roman Empire fell, all of these other empires have fallen over the last 2,000 years, but the Catholic Church remains and continues. And that's going to be just an incredibly powerful moment. And they all helped make that happen.
It's an emotional moment.
And for the faithful, the world over, by the way. This is a momentous moment for the faithful the world over. And not just Catholics.
Not just Catholics, but Christians, all people of faith, all people of goodwill who want to see the advancement of this human community and its true fulfillment. That's the papacy is tied very, very directly to that goal of humanity.
Let's take just a minute here and maybe kind of take this all in and take a look at what we're watching right now. So in any moment, possibly any moment, the next Pope will come out.
Again, we'll be preceded by a master of ceremonies will be holding a cross, other priests, and of course the cardinal that has been designated to make the announcement to the world that Habemus Papam, that we have a new Pope. And just look at the throngs of people in St. Peter's Square. And I think a lot of people probably didn't expect it to be this short of a conclave. You're having people right now running here from every corner of Rome. I talked to a couple of seminarians over at the North American College. They said, we're in class, but we've been told if there's white smoke, you drop everything and you run to St. Peter's.
Well, they have used the same formula for that white smoke for generations, but there was no doubt about it in our minds when that smoke came out at 6:08 p.m. Roman time here, Italian time. There was no question it was white. And then you wait for the bells. And they sort of leave you in suspense because it took an extra moment, but those bells are done to reassure everyone that yes, we have elected a new Pope. But also, Tom, the bells let everybody else know in the city and get to St. Peter's Square.
That's right. And the bells are actually a new incarnation of this process, because there was a lot of confusion. Is it white smoke? Is it black smoke?
Who started that? Was that JP2?
I think it was John Paul. I think it was John Paul II who started it, but it's fairly recent. And just to make sure, and that's why we were all waiting. We were all waiting to hear the bells of St. Peter's Basilica, those beautiful bells, and we knew that
people were so excited.
For people who haven't been to Rome, just walking around over the last few days, Rome is it's a large city, a city of 4 million people, but it's a small city and a very walkable city as well. So if you hear those bells and you know that the conclave is taking place, you are immediately going to start walking toward St. Peter's Square, and that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, it is. You know, they were 45,000 people here last night, and they knew it was probably going to be black smoke. So they expect to surpass that number. And outside of St. Peter's Square, up on the Via Conciliazione, you're going to have people packed all the way back to the border of the Vatican state here. But it's just wonderful. This is the global Catholic community. The word Catholic means universal, and you really feel like you're part of that universal church. You're really part of something when you're involved here in a moment like this.
Absolutely.
You know,
we are going to continue our coverage, but we want to see what the scene is like down in St. Peter's Square. Alex Salvi has been our Rome correspondent for the better part of the last 4 years. We had a conversation last night. He did not want to miss this moment. Alex Salvi, you did not.
Yeah, a truly extraordinary moment right here. The place just absolutely erupted. People have been flooding into St. Peter's Square ever since the white smoke came out of that iconic chimney. The bells ringing, and now we see a marching band making its way right up to St. Peter's Basilica. The mood right here is inexplicable. I mean, everybody is continuing to be waving flags around me. People are singing, pulling out their phones, yelling Papa. The chants from around the world, the different languages. It is unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and really what it took in order to get here too. At least 89 of those cardinals from across the world. The conversation for the past several weeks at this point has been that they're so diverse, both ideologically and geographically, and whether they could come together to unite behind one man. And now we know from the different symbols, from the smoke, the bells, everything, we now know that they have united behind one man on this, what seems to be fourth ballot in this afternoon session. We were talking about how important this would be, this crucial vote, the one where Benedict came out victorious, the one where the next one elevated Pope Francis to his position. It really sends a message that I think the Cardinals wanted to send here of unity. They didn't want this to go to a Friday. They didn't want it to go to a third day, because then there would be questions about where the Catholic Church stands. And it is worth remembering that when this happens, yes, there are ideological divisions within the Church, but at the end of the day, it is the Church. It's an institution that goes beyond any one man. It's a moment for many Catholics right here in St. Peter's Square, and people who are not Catholics either, who are coming here and really appreciating this moment. It's a moment that is so spectacular for them, and we have to talk about the one man right now whose life just changed instantaneously. He's now coming out of the Room of Tears. That's the room right adjacent to the Sistine Chapel that they go into following this vote, and it's called that because men have broken down with the understanding of the responsibility that has been put on their shoulders, and we know that it's now leading the Church, which represents something much larger, a religion, Catholicism, but also the 1.4 billion people around the world who will now look to this man for guidance, who represents something much bigger than himself, much bigger than maybe anything he's ever remembered before. So when it comes to this, in just a few moments, we're waiting for exactly what will happen. He'll be greeted one by the cardinals. He'll be dressed in his white vestments. In just a few moments, we'll see the proto-deacon come out on that loggia, speaking to the thousands of people already here in St. Peter's Square, introduce him by his given name and then his papal name, and instantaneously the world will be changed forever. Back to you.
I'll right there. I'll put it right there. I'll grab it for you.
All right, Alex Salvi, thank you so much. What a moment it must be to witness this down in St. Peter's Square. Back up here live on our balcony on the 6th floor, just above the square, Tom Williams, Vatican expert, is back with us. And Tom, you've had about 8 minutes now to step away from the microphone. What have you learned? What have you heard? You know, you've been covering the Vatican for 30 years. Here in Rome, no one has better contacts than you. Tell us what people are saying.
Well, that doesn't make me a prophet. No one. There are theories that, first of all, one theory that I think is very credible is that it's probably not the front runner, Parolin. That if he were to have been elected, it would have been in the 2nd or 3rd ballot, not on the 5th.
Why is that?
Because he would have gotten the highest number of votes on the 1st ballot, meaning that the 2nd more, and then people would, if he were to be elected, people would have jumped on that earlier. That's the reasoning. None of this is infallible, but it's definitely solid in terms of just a thought process.
Okay, with the swiftness of this coming on the 2nd day, potentially the 4th ballot, maybe the 5th. We don't know that yet. They were both sort of underway, and we were waiting for black smoke, and wouldn't you know it, we have a pope, we think. Could it be a surprise candidate? Could it potentially be an American? Could it be Robert Saleh, the African? Maybe our first black pope?
Everything. There's nothing that is off the table right now. In fact, it's very possible that in those final days of the general congregations, when everyone was together discussing these things and discussing also with the older cardinals that were not going to participate in the conclave, that they really started coming already to a consensus. We know that one cardinal went off in a huff saying that he thought that the cardinals had kind of abandoned or betrayed Pope Francis in the direction they were taking, which suggested a direction was already underway.
But I'll just say that is not the role of the Pope, to follow in the legacy of the previous Pope. The role of the Pope is to follow in the legacy of Jesus Christ. And that should be clear to cardinals, first and foremost.
100%, and that point has been reiterated in several of the moments when one cardinal has addressed the others. They have said, remember that this is not just a succession of men, this is not a political party, this is that you are the successor of St. Peter. You have to go back to the origins and be faithful to the one who named you, who is Jesus Christ.
Tom, we're going to take a listen in, and we're going to come back to you. We're just going to soak up this moment right now.
Lovely.
Tom, we were talking about a divided church in many ways, right? And a lot of people, as we were saying before, didn't expect this vote to come this soon. Who do you think would be a unifier? Which one of the cardinals, now Pope, do you think that could be?
Honestly, if they already agreed this fast, whoever it is will be a unifier already. At least he's unified the College of Cardinals. I mean, they were able to come together, and that should be a sign, I think, for the rest of the people. But my guess is that he will be someone who is very orthodox, doctrinally solid, but someone who is very pastoral. My guess, again, I like my guy Ranjith. Also, I like Pizza Ball. I like these guys that are a little bit outliers, but that are known to be good teachers, have good doctrine, but at the same time to be very pastoral and very good communicators.
For everyone who's joining us back in the States, Rob Finnerty, Tracy Sable, Tom Williams with us here above St. Peter's Square. Less than, let's see now, about 35 minutes ago, white smoke coming out of the Sistine Chapel. We have a new Pope on this, the second day. Just a remarkable historic moment following the death of Pope Francis on Easter Monday, April the 21st. Again, Tom, you've been covering the Vatican for 30 years. Take us through the next 45 minutes or so. The Pope, the new pontiff, has appeared on the balcony within 90 minutes since John Paul I. Take us through what happens next.
So the Pope, first the proto-deacon, it's a cardinal, a specific one. In this case, it's Cardinal Mamberti from, he's French. He will come out and declare, we have a Pope, Habemus Papam. And then he will say in Latin, he will say his name, his given name, his baptismal name, if you will. And then he will announce what his name is as Pope, what name he has chosen to be called as Pope. And then we see from behind him, dressed in the white papal garments, the man who is the new Pope will be coming right out. He will take the microphone and he will say whatever he wants to say at that point. Pope Francis, very famously, his first words when he took the microphone were, Buonasera.
Yeah.
He just said,
Buonasera.
Very simple.
Almost without words. But it's going back, as you say, to John Paul II. He had those magnificent words when he was first elected, which were, don't be afraid, open the doors of your heart to Christ. It was a message for the entire world. It was a message
set the
to
tone for his 25 years as the pontiff.
It did indeed.
Just want to make a note. This is a no-fly airspace over Vatican City. These drones are Vatican drones, and I've noticed them flying over the square, so they can capture this moment for posterity. But they're also starting to fly very close to the balcony where the Pope will appear, which I think is another good sign, and we've had many of those today.
Yes, these are not hostile aircraft. These are all very friendly, and they are giving us the best possible views of exactly what is going on, what's about to take place, this historic moment.
Yeah, and just looking at the crowds, look at the joy in everybody's faces. They're so excited.
Oh, it's amazing. It is where would you rather be, Tracy, right now than right here above St. Peter's Square in this moment?
It is certainly a blessing. Shelby Wilder is down in St. Peter's Square right now, and she is joining us with what it is like in the square. Thousands of people, Shelby.
Yes, it's hard to hear you because the service, there's so many people here right now. Not only the world's media, but tens of thousands of people were making their way to the Vatican tonight. And then we were expecting the smoke after 7 p.m. Again, last night it was around 9 p.m. we had that smoke signals come through. And so it was absolute shock for everyone. There were screams, there were cheers. People were so jubilant and excited, but we kept asking ourselves, is this actually happening? Are we seeing white smoke? And it was clear as day. It was white smoke. And then once those bells started to ring and chime out here in St. Peter's Square, people, again, were just so emotional, so moved. There's so many flags behind me. I've seen Italian flags, French flags, Mexican flags, Spanish flags, Brazilian flags. I mean, it's just so many different people here, and now everyone, of course, is waiting to see the new Pope emerge on the balcony. But just the sheer amount of people here, we haven't actually had service because it shows you everyone is wanting to connect with their family, with their friends, to just take in this moment of the new Pope that we are all waiting for. Again, just absolute jubilation here in St. Peter's Square, and we will continue to wait for him to emerge on this balcony behind us very, very shortly. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Shelby. It is just an exciting moment. People here in Vatican City and all over the world are just so thrilled at this happening right now. Also in New York City, we're going to go to Father Patrick Flanagan at St. John's University. Father, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. What an extraordinary day it really is, huh?
It really is. Tell us what you're feeling right now, what you're thinking in this moment.
So I was in the middle of saying Mass, the Eucharist, the Holy Catholic Church, and during my homily, I was talking about it. I was talking about the gift of the Spirit and how the cardinals had to pray for the Spirit guiding them and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, the bells went off at the cathedral here in Rockwell Center. And I turned to the people. I said, "Do we have a pope?" And they said, "Yes." And immediately, people started clapping and shouting for joy. It was a great moment.
I'd like to welcome in John Moody as well. John, just get your reaction to what we just witnessed here at the Vatican.
Well, what you saw was a very human reaction. We don't know who the new Pope is yet, and it's impossible to predict. But what you've seen is the enormous joy, enormous emotion, and it says a lot about all those people that say, you know, nobody believes in God anymore, and nobody needs religion. Take a look at St. Peter's Square and tell me that's true. It's not. God is here, and God is among us, and the people that are in that square are very fortunate.
Yeah, well said, John. Let's bring back in Father Flanagan. Father Flanagan, what are your thoughts in this moment of who we may see come out on the balcony?
Well, I suspect if I were to be a betting man, and I don't necessarily bet, but I wonder if it's one of the top three who have been mentioned often enough. So Cardinal Perlin, Cardinal Tagle, or one of the other popular ones, even Cardinal Pizzaballa. So I wonder if it's for the sake of unity that we think about these people and as possibly stepping out in the loggia in a few minutes. Because those are the ones that bring about a sense of consensus and unity amongst the cardinals. But it's a new moment, it's a new beginning, and it's a new hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we were talking about with Tom as well, unity. They're looking for somebody to be a unifier.
Well, like I said, it's just, to me, this is the Catholic Church making a statement to the rest of the world. And the media, you know, the media who always seems to think they have the answer. We were hearing from, you know, friends and experts that maybe we'd be here into early next week. Maybe they would stop voting on Sunday and pray for a day and try to think about what the next move would be. And here we are on the fourth vote. John Moody, one final question from me, and we were talking yesterday, author of Just Another Country. I'm wondering what it says to you that this vote happened on just the second day.
Yeah, again, only a fool predicts who the next pope will be, but I think the fact that it is a rather short conclave indicates that the names that were being considered and eventually voted on are names that we've all heard. You mentioned several. I think that Cardinal Aveline from Marseille is also someone that whose name has gotten around in a favorable way. But more than anything, I think what some of you have said before, it's can you connect with people? Do you have something to say to the Catholic faith? And what do you want to do with your papacy? That's much more important than how many elections have you won in the past and whatnot. This is not an American election. It's a very historic, solemn event.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. We're going to continue our coverage out here live with Father Gerald Murray, St. Joseph's Church in New York City. Father Murray has been here for more than a week now and been with us for every day. Father, it's great to see you again. Just your reaction.
Well, I'm very happy, of course. We have a new pope, but I'm surprised. I didn't think it was going to be this quick. So this is a beautiful gift from the church on the 5th ballot. So now we have just a short wait till the pope comes out on the balcony.
Yeah, and we've been asking everybody really this question, but what do you think this signals?
It signals, I think, that there was a candidate who emerged either on the 1st or 2nd ballot who got a lot of enthusiasm, and then after this morning's votes, they had 2 votes this afternoon, and that he met the match. He met the mark of 89.
Father, can I ask you, did you just race over here?
I did.
Okay,
yes.
okay. I can tell for everybody at home. We know each other pretty well now, and I can tell you're a little out of breath. And that's understandable.
But full of spirit.
And that's a wonderful thing, Father.
Yes.
And nobody expected this, and I think that's such a blessing. Again, who do you expect to come out of that door?
Well, it's hard to tell. I've been thinking Cardinal Pizzaballa from Jerusalem, but it could equally be Cardinal Erdo from Hungary. It could be Cardinal Parolin, the Secretary of State. Could be an African cardinal. It's just hard to tell.
Yeah.
We'll get that news very quickly.
Yeah, we've heard many of those names. Tell us a little bit more about why you think it might be them. Let's start with Pizzaballa.
I think Pizzaballa appeals to a lot of members of the college. He is the Archbishop of Jerusalem of the Latin Rite. He's called the Patriarch. He's lived in the Holy Land for 35 years. He's a man of seriousness. He's a man of prayer and doctrinal integrity. And he's had a tough road to hoe in the Holy Land with all of the warfare and misunderstandings and provocations that go on there. So he would be ideally suited, I think, to meet challenges in the Catholic Church as Pope if he is the one elected.
So what we are expecting to find out, again, we expect less than an hour, we will be introduced to the new Pope, the 267th Bishop of Rome. And our new Pope, the name is so important.
Yep.
Is this going to be a progressive Pope, more like Pope Francis, or is this going to be a more traditional Pope? The name means so much. And then, what this person says, what this Pope says when they come out on that balcony for the first time to the world.
It's a very important message that the new Pope will give to the world. His first words, I remember John Paul II, he said, "I'm come from a faraway country." And then he also said, "Be not afraid." He's it's a very important message he gives.
Can I just ask you, I'm not
Sure.
sure about this.
Yes.
I know what's happened in recent history. What language? Do they speak in their native language? Could a Pope come out and address the crowd in Latin?
They won't do Latin. Usually they do Italian. So this, of course, would be the first sign. Do we have a Pope who knows Italian?
Okay. So it would be Buonasera right now instead of Buongiorno.
Right. Yeah, it'll be some form of greeting, might be a religious greeting, but yes, it will. Usually Italian, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and speculation, you mentioned a Pope coming out of Africa. Cardinal Sarah is a name.
Cardinal Robert Sarah is one of the most outstanding cardinals in the college. He's 79 years old, so he just made it under the wire. He turns 80 in June, so he's in the conclave.
Wow.
Yeah, he's written a number of books. He's spoken out. He's a firm believer in continuity with John Paul II and Benedict. He criticized, on the basis of doctrine, some of the innovations under Pope Francis, but he always did it with his Catholic spirit, And he's also very concerned about secularization in the West. So, yeah, it's a very... if Cardinal Sarah came out, he'd be the first African Pope, and it would be a sign to the world of the vitality of the Church in Africa.
Just an update for everybody at home watching. We are closing in on just about an hour since smoke first appeared, so we are We are eagerly awaiting the new pontiff to step out of those doors right there. And we've never had a black pope before, and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, with it being such a fast conclave, does that tell you anything? Did they go in the direction of John Paul II and elect somebody who's quite a bit younger?
It's hard to tell. The thing that we knew going into the conclave, there were two camps, that there were those favoring the Francis approach, those favoring the Benedict John Paul II approach. And if they arrived at some kind of candidate that could get enough votes, then we'll know which tendency they favored. But it's hard to tell. I was expecting this to be more drawn out because precisely the two poles are quite opposite on how to approach, doctrinal confusion, secularization, and things of that sort.
Yeah. Walk us through what's happening right now. We're waiting with eager anticipation.
Yes.
It seems like it's taking forever, but tell us what's happening right now before the
Right.
Pope
Well,
comes out.
after the vote declaring that the candidate had gotten 2/3, he accepted the election, and then typically the cardinals will all applaud him, and then he will go into the room of tears and put on the white cassock, which is the Pope's vesture, and then he will pray to God and thank him. Then he comes out and the cardinals greet him individually in the Sistine Chapel. And then after that, then they'll process the cardinals out of the Sistine Chapel into the Vatican Basilica, and they'll go to the loggia, it's called. It's that balcony above the main entrance of St. Peter's. And when they come out, they will, the cardinal deacon, Cardinal Mamberti, will announce who the Pope is in Latin. And that will be the moment when people remember their school Latin. And
Exactly. Exactly. Father, can I just ask you, what the Pope is wearing also communicates a lot.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. No, the Pope, when he comes out, he wears the white cassock, which is the tradition for popes to wear. And then he wears a mozzetta, which is red, which symbolizes martyrdom and shedding of blood on the heart of bishops. Then he wears a stole, which has on it Saints Peter and St. Paul on either side, the red stole. And that is the symbol that he is the successor of St. Peter, but that St. Paul lived in Rome and died here. So the two pillars of the Roman Church are Peter and Paul.
So the red shoulder cape is the mozzetta.
Yes.
And is that something that Pope Francis chose not to wear?
He chose not to wear. He just chose to come out in the white cassock. So he was let's say, an innovator as regards even papal vesture.
Okay. I want to welcome in Father Keeley as well. Father, just get your reaction. Again, this is not what we were expecting, but it is a blessing, and blessings, as they say, always come in disguise, don't they?
One would hope, Rob. Yes, it's stunning. I think the news, no one expected it to be this fast. So we're all waiting with trepidation, with excitement, with hope for the name to be announced. That's going to be the most important thing. The very first name, his name in Latin, we'll know who he is, his Christian name. And then, of course, we'll hear his surname, final name. And they should be coming out any minute, really. So it's great excitement.
We're coming up on an hour since we first saw the white smoke appear. What a moment. Pope Francis said that wearing that red shoulder cape was too royal. He also, if I remember correctly, refused to wear the red shoes, the blood of the martyrs. We're going to know a lot within seconds of this new Pope appearing, aren't we?
Many people have said this is a real sign of the next Pope, that if he chooses not to wear any of these things, and by the way, those things were not ostentatious. They were signs of the man subsuming his identity, just like taking a new name. You may go in as Cardinal so-and-so, but when you come out as Pope, you're no longer that man. And the idea of wearing that vesture, those vestments, is to subsume your former personality and become a new man. So it wasn't necessarily so humble to get rid of that.
Okay. Father Keeley, Father Murray, we want to just show a scene of the square below. And just, again, St. Peter's Square, they're expecting more than 100,000 people. And there are flags from all over the world. And this is done deliberately. People would love to see, of course, Pope Francis was from South America. I see the Brazilian flag, Order in Progress, waving proudly there. But people are hoping to have a Pope from their home country, aren't they, Father Murray?
There's a very good chance it'll be a non-Italian, but, you know, given the nature of the college. But yeah, no, people come here. But by the way, the Universal Church, we embrace all nations.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the nicest things. The flags here don't mean separatism. They mean this country is part of this family, the church.
Okay, let's check in with Shelby Wilder. She is down in St. Peter's Square, where this is all happening. Shelby.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay, guys. This service here has been very, very choppy because the world has descended on St. Peter's Square. I mean, it's an absolutely incredible, obviously historic moment. Just the energy here in St. Peter's is one of jubilation, absolute joy. And again, that was because this came as such a surprise to everyone here. People were starting to make their way to the Vatican, but we weren't expecting this to happen until after 7 p.m. And so when it actually happened, people started screaming and asking, is this actually what we are seeing? Are we seeing white smoke? And it was clear as day that, yes, we do have a new pope. And since then, you cannot move. I mean, there's so many people here from around the world. I'm looking at so many different flags, and all eyes are now on this balcony. We can see that preparations, again, are being made, that we should be having really at any moment in the very near future this new pope, the head of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, to step out on this balcony. I just want to see if we can pan the camera. I want to show you just again, we are currently surrounded by media, again, from all over the world, but just how many people are here in St. Peter's to experience this moment. It is absolute jubilation here. Such an incredible point in history. And the question that everyone has on their mind is, who is the new pope? Well, as I mentioned, we're going to see him very, very soon. We just continue to keep checking back on that balcony and waiting for this incredible moment. So we will keep you posted. Handing it back over.
Okay, Shelby Wilder for us down in St. Peter's Square, and a beautiful shot there of the thousands of people who have descended upon St. Peter's Square over the last hour or so since we first saw the smoke, and then people across the beautiful city of Rome could hear the bells, and that's what John Paul II had in mind. If there was some discrepancy about whether that smoke was white, you know what, we're going to ring the bells. In Rome, we've been here for a while. Over the past week, it's a very walkable city, and you can hear those bells all over the city, probably right up to the mountains, off in the distance. I want to welcome back in John Moody, former Rome bureau chief for Time magazine. John, and just get your thoughts as we await the first appearance of our 267th Pope.
It's beautiful chaos, isn't it? Everyone down in the square is frantic and jubilant and waiting and anticipatory, and the men behind the curtains there who have not yet come out are probably asking each other, boy, did we do the right thing? I think we did the right thing. When's he coming out? What's he going to do? What's he going to say? So what one of your previous guests talked about what language the new pope will speak. And I thought that when John Paul II was elected, he, of course, being Polish, came out and began to address the crowd in perfect, fluent Italian. And what he said was, please excuse me if I speak your language. And then he paused and said, our language poorly, which immediately brought him into the crowd. The crowd went wild when he said that. And so any pope that wants to make an immediate impression may want to do Italian, and if he makes a few little mistakes, then so be it.
Well, John, I know that you wrote one of the seminal biographies of John Paul II, and he was a man of his time. You know, when people think about John Paul II, I think about, you know, the relationship that he had with the American president at that time, another political figure in Ronald Reagan who knew how to work the camera. So did Margaret Thatcher. And with John Paul II, he stepped out on that balcony, and to your point, that connection was instantaneous with the masses below and the world beyond.
Never forget that when John Paul, then Karol Wojtyła, was a student in Poland in high school, he was an actor. So, you know, winning a crowd over was nothing new to him. It might have been the most important crowd he ever won over, but he knew how to do it.
All right. John Moody, great to have you back with us. We'll check back in with you if we can in just a little bit. Back here live with Father Keeley and Father Murray. We are now almost exactly an hour, about 57 minutes since we first saw the white smoke. Father Keeley, reaction?
As I said, Rob, I'm still stunned, but people are getting excited. We can see the crowds in the square, and they're eagerly anticipating the name. We'll know as they announce his name, his first name, his Christian name, who he is. We'll all be able to say, we hope, who he is.
Can I ask, and Father Murray, if you have an answer, this is just a question I have as a Catholic, and I'm curious, but there is this time where, of course, our new Pope goes from Cardinal to the Bishop of Rome, and they have to get him fitted. They have outfits that can, the regalia that can fit any size man. They go from the room, and then but they wait a little while because they want to give people time to get here, don't they?
Yes, well, they don't want to rush it, and each cardinal greets him in the Sistine Chapel, so that takes a little while.
Right. Okay. I want to just quickly pause and go to Rick Santorum, who is rejoining us. Senator, nice to have you back with us.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Someone was talking in my ear. First off, I have to say, I've been to a lot of pretty incredible things in my life, and I can't imagine anything that tops this. This is an amazing experience. It's one as a Catholic from the United States. Can you hear me? Hello, I can hear you. Hello, 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 hello.
Senator, we can hear you.
Is anybody hearing me? Okay.
Well, I feel bad for the senator. We can hear you, and the world is going to hear all of us soon. Rick Santorum down. Obviously, it's very busy down there in St. Peter's Square.
Sure.
Father Murray, just back to that question about the delay in time. There's no set time for the Pope to appear on that balcony. Generally speaking, it has been under an hour and a half from white smoke first appearing.
Yes, and given the necessity to greet all the cardinals, and there are more of them this time than ever, and then they process out of the Sistine Chapel and go over to the Vatican Basilica, and then they have to go up to the loggia, and that's that balcony over the main door. So during that time, the new Pope has to compose himself, get his thoughts together, because he has to come up with his greetings. And as we were talking about John Paul II, his greetings were very interesting, based on coming from a faraway country. Pope Benedict spoke about himself as a worker in the vineyard of the Lord, which was a very scriptural image, that the Lord sends the apostles out to take care of the vine, the people of God. So it's going to be a time for thought and prayer, but then the explosion of applause when the name is said and the Pope appears. It's going to be wonderful.
Wow, I'm excited to witness that. Father Keeley, all of these cardinals arriving here shortly after the death of Pope Francis, April 21st. So some 18 days ago. Many have been here for going on 3 weeks. Of course, they want to return home to their respective dioceses, which is understandable. But that has given them time to hold these sort of informal congregations, not the general congregations, but these sort of informal get-to-know-you moments that you can sneak in during a meal, lunch or dinner. And here we are, day 2, and we have a Pope. How big a role do you think that may have played?
Well, I'm hoping, I call it pondering over the pasta.
Exactly.
I hope they were really enjoying their meals and really getting to know one another, because that's been one of the problems, that many of them said they didn't know each other, never met each other, didn't know anything about each other. And so that time is extremely important. It's actually more important sometimes than the general congregations, I think.
Father Murray?
Yeah, I agree. And, they got to know each other by attending meetings and listening to the speeches, but then outside, walking around.
Not just pasta, by the way.
Well, you have a little wine.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
A little antipasto.
Yes.
No, it's a real moment for them to get to know each other, because you have to judge the whole man, not just what he says, but how he acts, how he approaches other people. So, it's a feeling out process, and obviously it worked, because we're on the second day of voting and we now have a Pope.
Yeah. We want to welcome back in Father Chris Alar, who I believe is joining us from Barcelona this evening here in Rome now, after 7 o'clock now, 7:11 p.m. Father, your reaction to what we're witnessing right now?
Well, it's incredible. I'm here at one of the most beautiful cathedrals, La Sagrada Familia. This is in Spain. And we were here when the news broke that there was white smoke. So there's thousands of people in anticipation. The buzz went through the whole place. Tens of thousands of people here. quite an amazing scene and an amazing experience.
Okay.
And what the name maybe he chooses, what it means?
Father, do you have any guesses as to whom this person might be?
Well, we do know that they said it would not be an American, and that's because until America declines in its political, economic, and cultural influence, that there would not be an American pope because they didn't want them to also have religious influence. So I think you could write any American off, but the remainders you have within the Italian ranks, you have Parolin, who's a little more progressive. You have Pizzaballa, who's a little more conservative. So it'll be really indicative of how the church is really seeing itself in the next few years. The one drawback they say about Pizzaballa is he's rather young.
The Pope is about to step on the balcony. Father Chrysalar, excuse us for just a moment as we witness this moment in history.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus Papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem XIV.
Okay. If you're just joining us, Leo XIV, Cardinal Robert Prevost from Chicago. America, we have an American Pope for the first time, 69 years old, born September 14th, 1955, graduated with a degree in science and mathematics in 1977 from Villanova University. Father Keeley, Father Murray are also with me here. He's known as a pragmatist, Father Murray, but maybe more in line with the approach of Pope Francis. Is that fair?
I would think so, because Pope Francis appointed him a cardinal and made him the prefect of the dicastery for bishops. So he's responsible for the department that names the bishops throughout the world. And he represents the Pope Francis thinking about naming of bishops, yes.
As we await his appearance, can I get your reaction to the name Leo XIV, Father Murray?
It's a beautiful name. Leo XIII was one of the great popes at the end of the 19th century. He reinvigorated the church after the fall of the Papal States. Pius IX was his predecessor. He also restored Thomistic philosophy and theology as an important thing in the church. He's also the Pope of the labor encyclicals, recognizing the right to organize. So he really, Leo XIII is a very important Pope historically.
Father Keeley, appointed by Pope Francis as a cardinal in September of 2023, so not long ago.
He's a baby cardinal, and now the first ever American Pope, which is absolutely extraordinary. Everyone has said in the past that they'll never elect an American because America is still the leader of the world and they won't be allowed to lead the church, but now we have an American Pope.
Yeah, how stunning is that to you?
Again, I'm flabbergasted in a way.
Have either of you met
No.
Cardinal Prevost?
I've never met him, no.
No.
His father, born in America, mother Spanish. We know he spent many years as a missionary in Latin America, in Peru, specifically, Father Murray.
Yes, he was in Bishop Chiclayo, which is a mountainous region in Peru, and yeah, he's definitely a missionary. He's an Augustinian. They're famous in America because they run Villanova University, which has always had great basketball, but they are also a missionary order, and they serve in different countries, particularly in Latin America.
Villanova University now has their most notable alumnus.
I would think so.
In the Pope of 1.4 billion
Yes, no longer
Catholics.
Jalen Brunson.
Gentlemen, we've been talking about this for the last several days. We now have an American Pope. That's what we are about to formally witness on that balcony. Let's take a look.
That's him there.
That is he on the left.
Yes.
And the Cardinals are greeting him?
Yes.
It's stunning.
He became a priest in 1981, 44 years ago.
So under John Paul II, he was so a John Paul II priest, we could say.
Yes. The cardinals are gathered on their side balustrades. Yeah, there are balustrades on either side of the loggia, the central part where the red curtains are, and they are gathering there to see the Pope give his greetings and his first blessing.
Can I get your reaction to this selection? Does this mean that, we know that Pope Francis elected at least 2/3 of the cardinal electors, or appointed them to cardinal, and it seems like they may have had more sway in the Sistine Chapel than I think we all thought.
I think that's a good analysis. Certainly naming someone that the Pope himself had put as one of his principal assistants to be the successor of Pope Francis indicates a desire to continue with his agenda, synodality, things of that sort, a church where we involve lay people in more roles.
A guess. We're just analyzing this as we get the news right now. But is it a fair assessment to say that Pope Francis would have approved of this appointment?
Without a doubt.
And here we go. Okay, we are waiting for Pope Prevost, Leo XIV, to address the world. Here we go.
Peace of the Lord be always with you.
La pace sia con tutti voi. Fratelli, sorelle carissimi, questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto, il buon pastore che ha dato la vita per il gregge di Dio. Anch'io vorrei che questo saluto di pace entrasse nel vostro cuore, raggiungesse le vostre famiglie, a tutte le persone, ovunque siano, a tutti i popoli, a tutta la terra. La pace sia con voi. Questa è la pace di Cristo risorto, una pace disarmata e una pace disarmante, umile e perseverante. Proviene da Dio, Dio che ci ama a tutti incondizionalmente. Ancora conserviamo nei nostri orecchi quella voce debole ma sempre coraggiosa di Papa Francesco che benediva a Roma. Il Papa che benediva Roma dava la sua benedizione al mondo intero quella mattina del giorno di Pasqua. Consentitemi di dar seguito a quella stessa benedizione. Dio ci vuole bene, Dio vi ama tutti e il male non prevarrà. Siamo tutti nelle mani di Dio. Pertanto, senza paura, uniti, mano nella mano con Dio e tra di noi, andiamo avanti. Siamo discepoli di Cristo. Cristo ci precede. Il mondo ha bisogno della sua luce. L'umanità necessita di Lui come il ponte per essere raggiunta da Dio e dal suo amore. Aiutateci anche voi, poi gli uni gli altri, a costruire i ponti, con il dialogo, con l'incontro, unendoci tutti per essere un solo popolo, sempre in pace. Grazie a Papa Francesco. Voglio ringraziare anche tutti i confratelli cardinali che hanno scelto me per essere successore di Pietro e camminare insieme a voi come Chiesa unita, cercando sempre la pace, la giustizia, cercando sempre lavorare come uomini e donne fedeli a Gesù Cristo, senza paura, per proclamare il Vangelo, per essere missionari. Sono un figlio di Sant'Agostino, agostiniano, che ha detto: con voi sono cristiano e per voi vescovo. In questo senso possiamo tutti camminare insieme verso quella patria la quale Dio ci ha preparato. Alla Chiesa di Roma un saluto speciale. Dobbiamo cercare insieme come essere una Chiesa missionaria, una Chiesa che costruisce i ponti, il dialogo, sempre aperta a ricevere, come questa piazza con le braccia aperte, a tutti coloro che hanno bisogno della nostra carità, la nostra presenza, il dialogo, l'amore. Y se me permiten también una palabra, un saludo a todos aquellos, y en modo particular a mi querida diócesis de Chiclayo en el Perú. Donde un pueblo fiel ha acompañado a su obispo, ha compartido su fe y ha dado tanto para seguir siendo Iglesia fiel di Jesucristo. A tutti voi, fratelli e sorelle di Roma, d'Italia, di tutto il mondo, vogliamo essere una Chiesa sinodale, una Chiesa che cammina, una Chiesa che cerca sempre la pace, cerca sempre la carità, cerca sempre di essere vicino specialmente a coloro che soffrono. Oggi, il giorno della supplica alla Madonna di Pompei. Nostra Madre Maria vuole sempre camminare con noi, stare vicino, aiutarci con la sua intercessione e il suo amore. Allora vorrei pregare insieme a voi. Preghiamo insieme per questa nuova missione, però per tutta la Chiesa, per la pace nel mondo, e chiediamo questa grazia speciale di Maria, nostra Madre. Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te. Tu sei benedetta fra le donne e benedetto è il frutto del tuo seno, Gesù. Santa Maria, Madre di Dio, prega per noi peccatori, adesso e nell'ora della nostra morte. Amen. Il Santo Padre Leone, a tutti i fedeli presenti e a quelli che ricevono la sua benedizione a mezzo della radio, della televisione e delle altre tecnologie di comunicazione, concede l'indulgenza plenaria nella forma stabilita dalla Chiesa. Preghiamo Dio Onnipotente perché conservi a lungo il Papa a guida della Chiesa e conceda pace e unità alla Chiesa in tutto il mondo. Sancti Apostoli Petrus et Paulus, de quorum potestate et auctoritate confidimus, ipsi intercedat pro nobis ad Dominum. Amen. Precibus et meritis Beate Mariae semper Virginis, Beati Michaelis Arcangeli, Beati Ioannis Baptiste, et Sanctorum Apostolorum Petri et Pauli et omnium sanctorum. Misereatur vestri omnipotens Deus, et dimissis omnibus peccatis vestris, perducat vos Iesus Christus ad vitam aeternam. Amen. Indulgentiam, absolutionem et remissionem omnium peccatorum vestrorum, spatium vere et fructuose penitentiae, cor semper penitens, et emendationem vitae, gratiam et consolationem Sancti Spiritus, et finalem perseverantiam in bonis operibus tribuat vobis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Amen. Et benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et maniat semper.
Okay, my goodness. Welcome back. Rob Finnerty with you here. I'm so glad to be with you. I'm joined by Father Keeley and Father Murray once again. Gentlemen, I just want to go through a little bit of what Pope Prevost said. He spoke in 3 languages, Italian, Spanish, Latin. It gave me a tremendous amount of pride to see an American flag in that crowd. It gives you chills. I never thought I'd live to see an American Pope from the USA, and we now have that. He said, peace be with you, peace of the Lord be with you, peace to the world. God loves all of us. Peace comes from God. God wishes the world good. Evil will never prevail. the world needs Christ. And he mentioned peace, which I thought was so poignant. You think about what happened just this week, India and Pakistan, of course the war in Ukraine, of course the war in Gaza. Your reaction to what we just witnessed, Father Murray?
It really is history. I too, Rob, never thought we'd see an American Pope, and we're seeing kind of America's Pope, because he's a North American, but he spent most of his priestly career in South America, in Peru, a bishop in Chiclayo, a mountain diocese in Peru, and he was called from there to come to Rome by Pope Francis and only made a cardinal a year and a half ago. So he's a new cardinal, and he's new at his job, naming bishops. That was his department. So this is, for me, very happy to have an American Pope, but very surprised because I never thought it was possible.
I never thought I'd see the day. Again, Father Ben Keeley and Father Gerald Murray are with me here, high above St. Peter's Square. What a moment. Leo XIV, what did you make of the address? It was not extemporaneous like John Paul II, who spoke. It almost seemed off the cuff in 1978, but it was a moderately lengthy address. But what I noticed was that he was near tears the whole time, and there was a noticeable charisma, which to me is a welcome change.
I'm encouraged by several things. That the name that he's chosen, as Father Jerry said earlier on about what Leo XIII did, Leo XIV, that's a very important name. I was encouraged by the fact that he's wearing the traditional garments that the previous Pope did not wear. He mentioned at one point in his address about building bridges. Of course, the ancient title of the Pope is pontifex, a bridge builder. So this appears that he wants to heal some of the damages in the church, some of the issues that have divided the church over the last many years, and we really pray for this man. We don't call him Pope Prevost, and he is now Pope Leo XIV, and they'll be chanting Leo, Leo, Leo all the time now when they chant for him. So there are a number of very encouraging signs tonight.
Yeah, he said Mary walks with us in Spanish at the very end. He also quoted St. Augustine, the quote, I believe, if we've got the translation, a famous quote, I'm a Christian with you, but a bishop for you, Father Murray.
He's coming back.
Yes, a very famous quote.
Looks like he's coming back out in the balcony.
Just to greet the crowd again. They're going home for pasta now.
This is fine.
Okay. It doesn't appear as though he will be Francis 2.0 based on what he wore when he stepped out.
No, he'll be different and distinct from Francis in some ways. Particularly, he embraced the traditional garb and vesture. Francis said he thought that was too fancy, but he did say in his speech that he was going to promote the Synodal Church, which is the major innovation that Pope Francis introduced. The Synodal Church is a church in which lay people start assuming roles of authority and involved in the kind of governance of the church. So that's going to be a hot-button issue. But he prayed the Hail Mary together with everyone. He spoke words in Spanish to greet his diocese and all Spanish-speaking people. This is going to be a very interesting pontificate.
Again, Father Ben Keeley and Father Gerald Murray are with me. Father Keeley, born September 14th, 1955, 69 years old. So this would be what we would call a young pope.
This is also, a lot of the press was saying, all the rumor mills were saying that they won't pick a comparatively young pope. They wanted a relatively old man for a shorter pontificate. This man, Pope Leo, could potentially be the pope for at least 20 years. So many of the prognostications were incorrect. They've picked a man who was not born in the Second World War, who was only just born with Vatican II, the Second Vatican Council. So he's a man, really, you could say, of the late 20th century, early 21st century.
Pope Francis was a Jesuit. He is also of an order.
He's an Augustinian, which is a religious order they run, and famously in our country, the Villanova University, but there are also missionaries. Obviously, he was one of them. And the Augustinian order is a worldwide order based on one of the greatest saints in the history of the church, St. Augustine of Hippo. And he has a spirituality which is reflected in that quote that you just read, Rob, where he says, I am a Christian with you and I am a bishop for you. So the goal is to accentuate the fact that we're all together in the baptized, moving together in the same direction, and the bishops are our guides.
I want to put this up on screen, Father, just because this is a moment for the United States of America and the rest of the world. But we've never had a Pope from the United States of America, and we do right now.
We do now.
And if you want proof of the Holy Spirit, gentlemen, I'm sorry. I know we're on television. Look behind you right now.
Yep.
Is that divine intervention right there with that sunset? It is just, it is a remarkable moment out here in Rome. Donald Trump tweeting now. He put this on Truth Social, I believe. Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Prevost, who was just named Pope. It was such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a meaningful moment. That on Truth Social, coming from our 47th president. Quite a remarkable moment right there. But I never thought I would see an American Pope. I've said that. But when I was growing up as a Catholic, you know, the next line after that was always, well, Americans would rule the world. Father Keeley, how stunning is this?
Well, this is what I said, that people have always said in the past that America is still the most powerful nation on earth, and so the Church would not choose an American Pope because it would appear then that sort of the spiritual world and the temporal world were in harmony. I'm sure Pope Leo will have, I'm sure he'll be very, very friendly, of course, and to the United States and to the American president, but he will also have some issues. He's a man who has chosen a path, again, being Pope Leo. That's a sign of he will have a great interest in social issues, the working man, and but it's for you Americans. I'm an American green card holder, but for American citizens, you must be very proud.
Father Murray, can you just describe what we're looking at here?
So this is an Italian band. I'm not sure if it's a Vatican or Italian state band, so that's in the middle in the blue. On the left, we were looking at the Swiss Guard. And now we're going back to an earlier shot of the Pope giving his first blessing, and that's really
he spoke 3 languages, which is remarkable in and of itself. Started in Italian, then went to Spanish, then finally in Latin. Did not speak in English.
That was surprising.
As an American.
Yeah, that was surprising.
What did you make of that?
I'm sure we're going to hear his English pretty soon, though. But yes, he was, highlighting the fact that his identity as a bishop was in Peru, where he spent many years. I think he spent 30 years in Peru. He was in Rome for about 10 years. He was the superior general of his order. So those 2 languages he worked with as a bishop. It is interesting, the first American Pope never served as a diocesan bishop in the United States.
No.
But nonetheless, he is an American. He's as American as us.
And an American story. Went to Villanova University, graduated in 1977, became a priest in the early 1980s. John Paul II would have been Pope when that happened. Known as a pragmatist, appointed by Pope Francis as a cardinal in 2023. Want to welcome back in Tracy Sable. Tracy, and just get your reaction to what has been just an unbelievable moment.
Well, I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, we were talking about this, did not expect an American Pope. His name was thrown out a few times, but personally, I thought that was unlikely.
I agree. His name appeared. The Italian press was featuring articles about him leading up to the conclave, but I doubt it because he's an American. I just was in that mindset. But we've had a lot of molds broken recently, and this certainly is one, an American Pope, a blessing for our country. That's something is really unexpected, but now his life has changed completely. Now he's the Pope of the Universal Church, and the United States of America has another aspect in our history that we provided a son of the U.S. to the Church of Rome to be the bishop and the Pope of the Catholic
Father,
religion.
just a quick thought before we go. We have one other guest we'd like to get to, but you mentioned the sun, and it is about to set over Rome. Just your thoughts on, you've been here now for 9 days.
Yes, I mean, this is the sorrow of losing the Pope now, the joy of gaining a new one. It shows the continuity in faith. You know, he's now the successor of Peter. This faith goes all the way back to the time of Christ. And his words were beautiful. You know, precisely, he wants to lead people to Christ. He asked the Virgin Mary to intercede for us. And now he is going to lead the church forward. Many challenges, but the great joy of preaching the gospel, giving the sacraments to people, and providing. This is the year of hope in the church. This is a new sign of hope. God has given us a new Pope.
Yeah, Father Jerry, I was going to ask you that. What would would be your message to the faithful right now?
Well, start praying for Pope Leo, and now start naming your kids Leo, because that's always what happens. A lot of kids born when a new pope is named have that name. Study, of course, the works of St. Augustine, because that was his inspiration, and St. Augustine's one of the greatest thinkers in the history of the church. And let's thank God, because the reason the Catholic Church came to the United States is with the immigrants was that the immigrants came to a country, the Catholics, and remained faithful. They remained faithful to the faith of their fathers, and his parents are certainly to be thanked and blessed, because they raised a boy who became a priest, and now that boy completely unexpectedly became Pope.
Yeah.
Again, if you're just joining us, welcome Pope Leo XIV, the first ever Bishop of Rome from the United States of America, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost from Chicago, born in 1955, 69 years old, relatively young. His message was a message of peace delivered in multiple languages. Peace be with you was the first line he spoke. Peace of the Lord be with you. Peace to the world. God loves us all. Peace comes from God. God wishes the world good and peace. Evil will never prevail. To me, Father, that is quite an opening message.
You know, Christ, when he rose from the dead, the first thing he said to the apostle was, peace be with you. And that really has got to be one of the most beautiful aspects of any pontificate, which is the peace that Christ radiates is the peace that we all must seek to implement in our families, in our homes, in our communities, and in the world.
Father Murray, you were with me on my show, Finnerty, back in New York on Easter Monday evening, hours after Pope Francis had passed away. It is very special to spend this moment with you, I must say, and I appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes, we want to check in now with Father Francis Alar, who's in Barcelona, and he was with us moments ago. Check that, Father Chris Alar. Father, can you give us your reaction to what we've just witnessed?
Yeah, a real surprise. I had been one of the clergy saying there could not be an American Pope, and obviously I was wrong. Although I consider him more Peruvian, I knew he's a classmate of Pope Francis. He went to seminary with him, so I think there may have been some influence from the former Holy Father on this election, but we pray for him. As Father just said, we support the office of the papacy, and we continue to offer penance and sacrifice for his pontificate.
Father Chris, what do you think we can expect from this next pope, especially being so close with Pope Francis?
Yeah, I think you will see a continuation, especially in social justice issues. You know, he did reach out to the marginalized. He did continue this type of belief in social justice. But we got to continue to pray that we'll also keep focus on the teachings of the church. This is very important, and so let us continue to pray that this will be a time to give us a stronger clarification, less confusion and ambiguity. But we do know that was an issue in the last few years, and we continue to pray that there'll be less confusion and some more clarity on church teaching. Being a seminarian, a friend with Pope Francis, that's kind of, it shows there must have been some influence, but we'll see, and we'll keep on praying.
All right, Father Alar, we appreciate you being with us. Thank you for that breakdown from Barcelona, not far from where we are in Europe. Back out here live, we want to welcome in Tom Williams, a Vatican expert. Tom, it's nice to have you back. What do you make of Pope Leo XIV's relatively lengthy address based on what we saw from Francis in 2013? Almost near tears the entire time, but a noticeable charisma from the American.
Absolutely, and great dominion of the language, especially for an American speaking Italian. It was very, very well done. Obviously, one of the clear points that we can take from this is continuity with Francis. There's no question he used a lot of the same language that Francis used. He talked about encounter, he talked about dialogue, he talked about a synodal church, which are all things that were very, very dear and important to Pope Francis. However, the choice of the name Leo XIV rather than, for example, Francis II says he's also his own man, and he's going to focus on Catholic social doctrine. Pope Leo is most known for his encyclical Rerum Novarum from 1891, which was on the working man, the case of the worker, and he was very anti-socialist, which I think is a very positive sign as well. So I think it will be interesting to see how in these first weeks this new Pope, what he chooses to emphasize. Again, he is clearly marking a continuity with Francis. There's no sort of sense of rejection of that. But at the same time, I think somebody who intends to be his own man.
Yeah, I guess time will tell, and we'll have to continue to pray for him.
Absolutely. And I think no matter what, the cardinals have spoken. This was done relatively early in the conclave, which means they really did come together in unity. And it's a sign of hope, I think, that the church is united around this man. So, yes, we have to pray and hope that this will be a great pope, someone who will really help the church move forward while renewing her tradition.
All right, Tom, stand by. We want to go now to Rob Astorino, who is down in St. Peter's Square. Thousands of people descending upon the square over the last 2 hours. Rob, quite a scene.
Oh, yeah, and of course it's become like a hockey match, you know, because we've got the chants of USA, USA from the Americans down here, and people were breaking out in song. And of course, a lot of people are saying, who is this new Pope, Pope Leo XIV? Look, you know, you guys were talking about it. I think what is not said is you're getting a mix, I think. This was definitely compromised, but it's definitely, as Tom was saying and others saying, this is definitely to the left. He was the ultimate insider, but also, you know, he did missionary work. So that's where the Francis and the social justice will come in, working with the poor in Peru. But of course, you know, he grew up in Chicago. He went to Villanova in Philadelphia. So he's an American, definitely, but he has spent a lot of time outside of America. And I mean, I am shocked that they went with an American Pope, no question about it. But if they were going to go with one, he probably was the one they were going to go with, because he keeps the line of Francis in many ways. And yet, unlike Francis, who was South America, he brings more of America to him and some of those values with the church, the missionary work, and Rome. I mean, he is an insider, no question. So definitely an interesting pick. And an American. We made history today, and he'll speak good English. We know that. So let the reign of Pope Leo XIV begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob Astorino, thank you. We'll check back in with you in just a few minutes. Again, Tom Williams, I know that we're all surprised that we now have an American Pope. This Pope is certainly more in line with the thinking and the approach of Pope Francis, but maybe not Pope Francis 2.0. And the only reason I say that is his first appearance was in the full regalia, a departure from what we saw in 2013.
And he also gave the final blessing in Latin, which Francis did not. Francis gave it in Italian, which also is a nod to the tradition and Latin in the church. So my guess is that he will try to be more conciliatory, especially with conservatives. The church in the United States has definitely tended to be very orthodox and very conservative, and I think that he's not going to want to alienate that either. I think he will be clear on doctrine. That is my hope anyway. And I think he will definitely have this pastoral outreach, and he will definitely preach social justice. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that he won't be one to touch the key moral teachings of the church and doctrinal teachings of the church. I think we have reason to hope for that.
Yeah, Tom, talk about the challenges that he's facing right now.
Well, he has a number of challenges. The financial situation of the Vatican right now, and having an American is also meant to have somebody who's pragmatic, who can raise money, and that will, I'm sure, be part of the upshot of this. But there's also a need to kind of clean up the ambiguity and the confusion that was sown, I think, during the last 12 years of the Francis pontificate, and someone who just is able to reaffirm basic core teachings of the Catholic faith. He is a missionary. He is someone who believes in preaching Jesus Christ, evangelizing. And that's something that, in fact, he has said that is the future of the church, is evangelization. So that is something that can be very, very positive.
Okay, coming up on 8 p.m. here in Rome, Tracy Sable, Rob Finnerty, Tom Williams with you live from the Vatican as we begin another hour of our coverage. And we are so blessed and grateful to be doing that. Stay with us.